Good morning, everyone. It's December 5th, 2017 at 9 o'clock. And we're going to call the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors to order. At this time, we'll stand, please, for invocation by Tim Sackett, Transport of Christ, for Christ.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation to be here again for prayer. And I just hope you guys have a great meeting. It looks like there's a lot of final reports coming up. Everybody has finals today, right? So hope you studied for your finals. Thank you for the opportunity to come and pray today. And I just think about, we finished our Thanksgiving holiday, and it was time to give thanks. And now Christmas is coming, and now it's time to give gifts. But we can't forget to keep on giving thanks. And I think this season, of course, is a season of joy and family and friendship. But I also want to pray for people who struggle with what it means to have joy. I think we're just devastated this year by all of the depression and suicide and attempts and things like that from people who have lost the joy of what it means to be living. So with that, let's pray. Lord God in heaven, the many, many people in this room have a great obligation to be an encouragement and a support to the people of this county. And I pray that in their leadership and in their associations and in their all the meetings they've had this year, that they've found ways and they will discover more ways to bring health and peace to the people of the county. And as one of the clergy in this county, I just pray that we, as clergy, also have the same obligation and the same opportunities to bring hope and joy at this time of season for the people who are feeling hopeless. There's many, many problems to overcome in our county, even in our homes and in our churches, in the offices, in the schools around the county. So I just pray, Lord, that this meeting today is covered in prayer, and we just pray that as the angels announced that the birth of Jesus would be a time of great joy and a peace to all men. All the people around the earth can find peace and joy in this celebration of Christmas. And for the difficult work that's being done in this room today, Lord, I pray that there would still be peace and contentment and joy in the people in this room, in all their offices around the county. We give you thanks that we have the opportunity to come together and start this meeting in prayer, and hope that everyone enjoys the season and has a very Merry Christmas. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim. Everybody please to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Cindy, are we ready for roll call? Dan, you're... Ryan's absent, been excused, so we'll move forward with our public comment. At this time, we're open for public comment, and we will start with a Kathy Averinger. I'm hoping I'm getting it close.
It was a very good attempt. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Kathy Averinger. I'm the Director of Operations for Cardinal Health. We've been actually in Hudson. We're going to be celebrating our 20th year coming up next March. And the reason I'm here today is due to public transportation. Not only do my current employees, but when we are going through recruitment too, we struggle with people having the ability to get to and from work. Our industrial park is a wonderful place. It represents a lot of businesses within the community, and we're all struggling. People want to find work, but getting to work is sometimes very difficult for them. They rely on family members to drop them off, pick them up, and some people ride bikes, but as you can see from the weather from today, it's not always a reasonable expectation in relationship to things. So being able to have that public transportation not only opens up the doors for our current employees, I have quite a few that carpool also, but it also opens up the opportunity for those people living in areas that they can expand their horizons on where they apply for work and what they do. We offer a competitive salary, we offer great benefits, but if you're living in downtown Hudson, coming up to the industrial park can be rather difficult to do. Also, as a business, we struggle because we can't find enough people to fill the open positions that we do have available. We don't struggle with that on the professional basis of those positions that we have within our facility, but over 90% of our employees that actually work in our facility, since we do distribution, are hourly. So it gives them another option, and it opens horizons for many more people to find a job with great benefits, full-time work that is stable and is looking for people. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just remind everybody, I forgot to remind everybody, we have a 3-minute time limit, so just so everybody's aware of it. And now Michelle Ashley.
Good morning. My name is Mikla Isi, and I'm on here on behalf of my business, which is a local staffing agency. We currently have 300 open positions in the St. Croix Valley alone. 35 to 40% of all of our jobs are declined due to transportation, and this could be anything simply, like stated before, from downtown Hudson to the industrial park, or from River Falls to Somerset. The whole valley as a whole, transportation is a large issue. We also currently van about 150 employees on a daily basis from our St. Paul location to our Somerset location, which also means that the revenue is not staying local. This revenue is going back to the cities. I also participated in the Giving Tree this year with my daughters. We completed it last night. That has also dramatically increased. They went from 130 families to 168 families. All of these individuals, which I'm extremely passionate to put to work and be able to provide for their families, as I do for my own. And that's going to start with transportation here. Many of our companies are paying outrageous transportation costs because what it is to rent a van, provide a driver, and then run anywhere from 3 to 6 shifts a day. So if we could bring that locally and really make an impact on the families that are here that are in need of work, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Blake Fry.
Good morning, my name is Blake Fry. I'm president of the Hudson Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. I'm also here this morning to speak on behalf of public transportation in St. Croix County. Back in May, I had an opportunity to write an op-ed for the Hudson Star-Observer in favor of public transportation. To date, I have received 0 negative comments about that op-ed. You could write an op-ed about how great puppies are these days, and somebody's going to write a scathing rebuttal about puppies and how they ruin their home or something. I believe I have not received a negative comment. I run in a lot of circles. I'm around elderly, I'm around young people, I'm around conservatives, I'm around liberals, a cross-section of this county, and I have not received negative feedback. I haven't because I think they're starting to become this reality check in our area about who we are, and I think it goes beyond public transportation. As I said in my op-ed, there are 10 metropolitan statistical areas in the state of Wisconsin with over 100,000 people. We are the 8th largest. Pierce and St. Croix County, our part of the Twin Cities, are the 8th largest metropolitan area in the state of Wisconsin, larger than La Crosse, larger than Fond du Lac. We are the only one without public transportation. And it's so vital. You've heard from employers, you've heard from staffing agencies. The reality is we have a lot of really good jobs available in Hudson right now, but they don't pay at the level that allows you to live in Hudson. I mean, Hudson's situation right now is forget affordable housing. How about just housing that's available? We had some months this year where the average sale price of a home was over $300,000 in Hudson. Everything that's being built in our community right now, 4-bedroom, 3-bath homes at $400,000. You can't afford to live in Hudson and work in Hudson in many cases. So they're having to come, workers are having to come from River Falls, Baldwin, New Richmond, points beyond Hudson. But as you heard, without public transportation, if you don't have a car, if you're unable to drive, you can't take one of those good jobs, and you can't help grow one of our great businesses in our community. And beyond employment, it's about access to human and health services for people. The time has come for us to start thinking of us as a metropolitan area and not just a small rural area on the outskirts of another metropolitan area. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Beckstrom?
I'm here to speak in favor of public transportation. My name is Jessie, and I live and work in Hudson. I'm the program director for Bridge for Community Life. It's a local nonprofit here in Hudson. We help find employment and other enriched activities for people with disabilities. I see the need to build public and affordable transportation daily in my work at Bridge, as we connect individuals with disabilities to jobs in the community and are often stopped by the lack of public transportation. The job seekers Bridge supports most often do not drive, and therefore the lack of public transportation becomes their #1 barrier to employment. With public transportation in place, Bridge would be able to increase the number of people holding jobs, which would in turn increase the number of people paying taxes, spending earnings in our community, and support local businesses. Also, holding meaningful employment can lead to better health outcomes for people with disabilities, as we all have better overall mental and physical health when we're out working and being productive. Personally speaking, I had a close family member who lived in New Richmond and was unable to drive. She was, things like attending medical appointments, grocery shopping, meeting with friends became very difficult for her, and eventually it led to her to leave the community and move to a place where there was public transportation. As a resident of St. Croix County, I believe the addition of accessible and affordable public transportation would attract more families to live here, help strengthen our local economy, and increase the quality of life for all of us.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Zaski.
Good morning. My name is George Zaski, and I've been a resident of St. Croix County for some time. Until last month, I was the chair and president of Bridge for Community Life. And as Jesse just mentioned, they have an employment unit. And Bridge, in that employment unit, can help individuals with disabilities enhance their skills. They can provide job coaches. Bridge employment unit belongs to 6 Chamber of Commerces because they have to educate businesses about the value of people with disabilities can have as employees. And you've heard from employment agencies that there's a need for employees in our area. But the one area that we continually see come up is transportation. How do we provide transportation in a reliable and affordable manner? An organization like Bridge is not big enough to be able to do it. I'm also the member of 2 county and community groups on transition. One's in Pierce County, one's in St. Croix County. It's a collection of school districts, employment agencies, the county, and service providers for people with disabilities. One of the things that comes up in just about every meeting as we try to figure out ways to transition young people with disabilities out of high school into their communities is transportation. I was a member of the group that brought Project Search into our area. I'm still on the steering committee. That program is in its 3rd year. It helps individuals with disabilities, young people with disabilities, to get marketed skills. They do it in an intern rotation process. It's been a wonderful program. It's nationwide. It's international. We can enhance individuals with disability skills to have jobs. We can educate employers about the importance of hiring people with disabilities, how reliable they are, how consistent they are at showing up. There are tasks that they can do that add value to the organization, but every spring, one of the biggest challenges we have as the steering committee is trying to figure out reliable and affordable transportation for these individuals who have skills. I can't tell you the number of teachers that I've spoken to who feel bad that they have students who have the skills to be in their community but get stuck on the sofa because there's no reliable transportation. I'm a member of the Council on Aging and Disabilities here in St. Croix County. Dave, a number of you know that's a regular topic, is affordable, reliable transportation. Not just for people who have low income, not just for people with disabilities, but also for the elderly. This is an issue that addresses a large segment of our community, not just people with disabilities, not just people with low income, not just frail elders. I think it also will apply to millennials. There are a lot of people who can't afford or don't want to buy a car in this day and age. And then finally, on the personal side, I'm also a parent of a child with a disability. My son's 20, he went through Project Search, he has job skills, he has a job in the community. It's been a struggle for us to make the transportation work. We've been able to do that. You can say, oh wow, we're self-reliant. The question I have is when I'm not here, what's going to happen 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now? Because I hope he has a 40-year work life. But if there isn't something in place for him to be able to do that, I worry if he'll be able to continue to be in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person I have, Adam, and I'm sorry I can't read the last name you wrote on the, sir, step up to the podium.
It's coming from the heart. I'm speaking on behalf of my complex I live in, Tribune Commons, where it's majority handicapped people and disabled people. My name is Adam Webb, by the way. I work at County Market, right up the street. And I got 3 agendas. Now, the first agenda is putting Uber over here or putting Lyft over here. That way, people unemployed can be self-employed or buying buses off nationbus.com. Handicap accessible buses, they go on for $50,000 to $100,000 per bus. That'll get people around. You all need to start talk to the Congress, talk to Scott Walker, get the funding. Because when I came up here from Chicago, I was fortunate enough to have transportation, Chicago Transit Authority, and PACE, and Metro, so we can get around. What about the people at school? They don't want to walk, especially in this weather. Come on. They want to, and the only thing we have is a taxi. They monopolize them. Transportation. They need competition, and they need other transit services. No. Thank you.
Thank you. Wanda Flickshoe.
Good morning. My name is Wanda Bayou, and I live in the Richmond. And I'm here today to add my comments regarding public transportation. Living in the Richmond, I'm a person with a disability, with several disabilities, and I depend on transportation, especially wheelchair accessible transportation, because I'm more and more using my electric wheelchair. Now that the snow and ice is here, I can no longer ride outside with it, so I need to depend on transportation. We have a taxi in town. It runs 2 vehicles during certain hours on weekdays, and then at 2:30 it goes down to 1 vehicle. It's done running at 8 o'clock, so it gives the last ride at 7:45 p.m. And this means that any activities, city council meetings, ball games, concerts, any other community activities are no-go because they don't get done before the taxi ends up closing down. Just one of many examples. There's several examples I could give, but I'm only going to give one. I called a taxi for a ride to the medical clinic for a doctor appointment. When the doctor appointment got done, I called for a ride home, and they said no, because they got so many calls that they were booked up for the next 3+ hours. That's a long time to wait for a ride home. Needless to say, I had to ride home in my wheelchair, and I was not dressed for the inclement weather. So that was a little bit of a problem for me. But, and this is in the Richmonds, and I know River Falls has the taxi service also, so that has to be a problem with them. The other piece of this I'd like to share is that there is no affordable transportation going between towns, like from the Richmond to Somerset or to Hudson, or to Stillwater for doctor appointments when you get referred over there, or even to shop at stores that are not available in my area. I used to use volunteer drivers, but they're becoming few and far between as they get older and quit driving. Many of them are preparing to go south for the winter, which leaves transportation at a big disadvantage. When the new Stillwater Bridge came in, there was an expectation that much growth would take place in St. Croix County. If taxi services or other transportation services are not improved, how are they going to handle the increased ridership, which they can't handle now? How are they going to handle it with the increase in population and the increase in community activities? I'm an active volunteer. A lot of my volunteer work does go into the evening. Public transportation has a lot to do whether I get to do my volunteer work or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Bergstrom.
Good morning. I'm Julie Bergstrom, Assistant City Administrator for the City of River Falls. And I just want to echo what the other previous speakers have said. Transit is an important issue for this area. As you know, River Falls and New Richmond have shared ride taxi services, but they can only provide so much service. And we do attempt to get people to Hudson, but once they get to the south side of Hudson, they're pretty much stuck. So as a member of the planning subcommittee, I would encourage the county board to move ahead on this project and perhaps towards the transit commission or whatever the proposal is. On a second note, I'd really like to thank the county board for their other support of municipalities in the county, especially library funding, transit for the roads, the rideshare taxi service. You've been supportive of that, and election support, especially now. We really appreciate all those services, and it's good for everyone. So thank you again.
Thank you. Chris Cross.
Good morning. My name is Chris Cost. I'm the Executive Director at the YMCA here in Hudson. I stand here with my fellow agencies and businesses in regards to public transportation. The Y has been serving the St. Croix Valley for 23 years, and what we're finding out more and more is that there are more and more needs for individuals for transportation. We realize that the top 3 areas of concern in the St. Croix Valley are mental health, inactivity and obesity, and addiction. The Y is more than a gym and swim. We are actually targeting all 3 of those areas. People cannot participate in those areas if they do not have transportation. I have seniors every week that call us asking, do you guys provide transportation to get to the Y? So I can not only just work out, but I can be with my peers. It's a social piece there at the Y. I also want to share that this summer we had 250 youth memberships that we were giving away for free to our youth in the community, knowing that getting them in a program, giving them activity will not only help shorten the education gap, but also will help them stay out of their basements where they're playing video games and getting into other things that we don't want them getting into. Unfortunately, of those 250 memberships, we were not able to give them all away because of 2 different issues. First, 94. People south of 94 cannot get to the Y. And second of all, Lake Malibu, people north of the area cannot get down to the Y. It's sad because in today's era, both parents are working, so both cars are being used. Kids cannot get to the Y. Teens cannot participate in the programs we have to offer that not only help with their physical and mental, but also with their social abilities. So transportation is a big need. I can go on and on, but I don't want to take too much of your time. But I want to thank you for listening to this, and please consider the transportation issue that's before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Parks.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Parks. I'm the Director of Options for Women in River Falls. We're a pro-life organization, a pregnancy help resource center and clinic for those who are facing an unplanned pregnancy and just families in general. We offer pregnancy testing, STI testing, ultrasounds. We have a medical director, and we offer, the access to the medical professions, and parenting and pregnancy classes, along with assistance with material. Wow. It's kind of distracting. Okay, should I start over? No. Okay. So, wow, they've got something to say. So, many times we get clients who want to come in and take advantage of our free of charge services, but they can't get to us. We are the only pregnancy resource clinic in this area. We serve clients from Pierce County, St. Croix County, Dunn County, even into towards the city's area. And one of our biggest concerns is transportation. We are not allowed to go and pick up clients, and they sometimes can't get to us. We get calls from Hudson, from Hammond, Roberts, surrounding areas, who don't have a way to get to us. But they need our help, they need our support. So we would like to see the transportation needs really answered for our ministry, so that we can continue to help these individuals who need our assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're still open for public comment. If anybody has anything they want to say?
Got one to read in, Roger.
What?
Got one to read in.
Okay, read that one in at this time.
We received a letter from Ramsey Lee. It says, "Thank you so much for hosting this meeting and allowing me to submit a testimony today. I'm extremely grateful and appreciative for all the hard work that the Transit Committee and the County Board has put into this effort. My name is Ramsey Lee, and I'm a person with disabilities who lives in Hudson, Wisconsin. As you know, transportation in this community is needed as it helps many individuals get to work and fully appreciate all aspects of community life. At the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, they had a cab service that was wheelchair accessible and affordable. It was approximately $5 a ride. Hudson is a great place to work with many activities and a great place to live. An accessible transportation system would not only help the economy grow, but it would allow citizens to get their places of employment easier. It would also be very beneficial for people who do not drive. As we consider transportation options, they should be welcomed for the well-being of the community. And we should consider that with more people moving to our great state, we need transportation to move forward. Without accessible and affordable transportation, citizens may not be able to get to work, to get to church and other activities. Although Hudson and St. Croix County currently have a taxi service and a wonderful aging and disability resource center, transportation with the senior center is limited to 2 days a week, approximately 2 hours a day. Although the ADRC subsidizes cab services on the weekends, it is not accessible for someone in a wheelchair. I have several friends that have been here today, but some of them could not get here due to the lack of affordable transportation. I believe if we want more people to work, we should make sure that everybody has access to needed transportation services. For this reason, I am asking the county board to carefully consider allowing more transportation options, such as Uber or Lyft, to come to Hudson. In addition, we should collaboratively work with Hudson to see what they have for options. Sincerely, Ramsey Lee.
Thank you. We're still open for public comment. Anybody else have anything they want to say? One more time, anybody have any public comment? And we'll close the public comment and we'll move forward. We have the consent agenda. I need a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Babbitt, need a second. Supervisor Hanson.
No, I don't. I need to move to amend the consent agenda. I need to separate the request for zoning town of Forest and move it to the regular business. It needs to be voted on as an independent.
Right, and I was looking at the next date for the county board meeting on the 2nd. I was talking with Cindy earlier. I had some people talking about it, and if it's all right with everybody, we can, the 4th would be on Thursday instead of the Tuesday it normally is, and that works with county boardrooms open. If that's all right with the supervisors, we'll change that date to the 4th.
I'm sorry, Chair Larson, I don't think you understood what I was saying.
Excuse me?
The rezoning for the Township of Forest on the consent agenda should just be relocated on the agenda to the business section. We should handle that as an independent part of business. So just take it off the consent agenda, move it down to business, and vote on it independent of, not part of the consent agenda.
That should be added to the end of the list on the...
Please.
Okay. If there's any problem with that, anybody have a problem moving that? Is that okay?
That's fine.
So we'll move that down onto the new business items. And I'm still talking about the date for the county board meeting on the 2nd to move it to the 4th, if that's all right with everybody. Not seeing any objections. I'll move that to the 4th of January at 9 a.m. Now, you made a second? What? It's Dr. Babbitt. There's a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Just to be clear, so we're approving the consent agenda with moving the town of Forest rezonement to a different item. So it's actually an amended consent agenda. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we're voting on an amended consent agenda. Okay. And what?
Any other discussion? Not seeing any. We're going to vote on the amended consent agenda this time. And that's all yeses. Thank you. This time we'll go into presentations, and I'll turn this over to Administrator Thompson.
Okay, first of all, we have on the agenda a report from Peter Kildee from WestCap. Peter, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for an opportunity to get up here again. It's been a couple years since I've been able to share with you what WestCap has been about, particularly in St. Croix County. I would note a couple of things first, in that although WestCap operates many programs that are government funded, a lot of them are sourced in Washington, D.C., some are blended with Wisconsin and other funding sources. We are, in fact, a nonprofit charitable organization, totally controlled by a local board which includes representatives from all 7 counties in which we operate. Dave Osnes on your board happens to also serve on my board, so he's one of the 21 bosses I have, helping keeping West Cap aligned to what it's trying to do. We've been around for 52 years doing the work of alleviating poverty in 7 counties in west central Wisconsin. In addition to this one, we're in Pierce, Pepin, Dunn, Chippewa, Barron, and Polk County. In the last year, for which we have final information, fiscal 2016, we served just under 26,000 people in this 7-county area with our programs, and had an economic impact, basically the value of the service provided, the cost provided, and the money that we bring in, almost all of it from out of this area. A lot of it's return of government funding to this region to go to work, but an economic impact of about $9.5 million. So our total efforts on the 7 counties are at that scale. In St. Croix County in the same year, our economic impact was about $2.6 million, and we were able to serve a little over 5,000 St. Croix County residents. At this time, I'd like to take just a minute and direct your attention to another document that we passed out before the meeting called Alice in St. Croix. I don't know if you folks have seen this, but this is really a remarkable thing that the National United Ways have done, where they've looked at the economic conditions and economic hardship in various states around the country. So far, they've done this very deep depth analysis in 15 states, and in 2016 did this study in Wisconsin. And it literally goes down to the township level and analyzes the economic conditions of low-income people in those areas. Now, what ALICE stands for is asset limited, income constrained, and employed. So they look at 2 groups, people that meet the official poverty definition, and by all counts, that definition fails to capture the real economic hardship that people have, and everybody knows it. So you have programs that are at 125% of poverty, 150, up to 200% of poverty, because everybody understands that that poverty level is set too low. It was actually created in 1955 by a USDA employee named Molly Orshansky, who figured that 1/3 of everybody's money should go to groceries. She took a grocery cart, calculated that. That's been the standard ever since. Hasn't exactly been updated, but nobody can agree on a better system. So you've got that in place. And then this other group that they call the ALICE group, which is above the poverty line and still can't quite meet their basic needs. The bad news is, of course, in the state of Wisconsin, they've determined that 42% of the population of Wisconsin fits in that group, that are economically struggling, one could say can't afford to live here. The story in St. Croix County, frankly, is a little better. It's a total of 29%, but that's still almost 1/3 of the population is struggling economically here. And so the kinds of things that were expressed so eloquently in the invocation today around the stresses that creates in people and their lives and expectations and all sorts of manifestations around mental health, addiction, and everything else can be related to that. Certainly the low-income population doesn't have any kind of monopoly on that. If you're paying attention to the news the last 30 years, you'd realize that, but certainly it is another stressor. So I will ask you to take a look at that if you would. Some communities in St. Croix County, including the community that we are headquartered in Glenwood City, have a ALICE rate of 60%. 60% of the population of that community struggle to basically pay the bills and meet their basic needs. So that's the population we serve is the population that are in the poverty area, but also the rest of what these folks are calling the ALICE population. That's exactly who we are working with on a daily basis. So I've also left at your desk a report with the WestCap logo on the top that does lay out exactly what we've done in a year. Not the most recent one, but very close. I'll just touch on that, fairly straightforward. We do a lot of adult education in a couple of areas. We run the literacy program for St. Croix, Pierce, and now into Polk County. In St. Croix County, we helped 100 people with this program. It's basically one part-time staff person and a lot of volunteers. So if anybody wants to be a tutor or something, please let us know. It would be very helpful. We also do a lot of community housing development. At this point, we have a total of 24 units in the county. We have 12 in Hammond, 11 in Glenwood City. We've got a house in New Richmond. I would also point out that in April, again, as I listen to this housing need here in Hudson, also in the introduction today, I'm very pleased to report that we have cleared the final hurdles on getting funding to do a 38-unit affordable housing multifamily unit project here in North Hudson starting in April. So this project will ultimately be owned and managed by WestCap. We've got about 400 units in the 7 counties. We do a lot of this type of work. This is in conjunction with a private developer, Gerard, but in this case, they're doing the development. We're facilitating that, working with them, and the project will be ours. We're also working with Gerard on the creation of a 36-unit affordable senior project here in Hudson. That will be, it's called the Carmichael. It will be located, surprise, on Carmichael. And that's also scheduled for start in the next year. So we hear loud and clear the need for affordable housing options in particularly this part of the county, and we are working to respond to that. We're also approved to do a 40-unit in River Falls. So a lot of our activities these days is directed to that very clear message we get from everybody that affordable housing is really needed in this part of Wisconsin. Energy assistance, under contract with St. Croix County, we administer the Wisconsin Energy Assistance Program. Happen to help 2,248 folks that live in 952 homes here in St. Croix County to meet their emergency energy needs. We do administer the federal TFAP program. That's the USDA Emergency Food Assistance Program. Again, that is in conjunction with food pantries around the area. We have worked with 28 different pantries. We work with the shelters. We work with all those folks to do a number of things. The TFAP program, we also facilitate a senior farmer market program, commodity supplemental food program, and the farmer's market. So we do a lot of things in that area. Excuse me, one of our other biggest areas is around housing assistance, where mostly this is homeless prevention. So there are a number of federal programs through HUD around rapid rehousing, temporary housing assistance. We work with Grace Place and other partners of Salvation Army to provide those services. And again, helping 534 people in St. Croix County. The Jumpstart program, as I hear all this very significant need for transportation, about 20 years ago, during the welfare forum, pardon my cold, I got a little bit of a catch here, but WestCap created a facilitated car ownership program for low-income families. And it was always extremely difficult to find funding for it, but in terms of the impact on people who could drive, it was just extraordinary. People got better jobs, better housing, better child care, just right on the list, everything we tested. So we've tried to run that program with a little foundation help. We didn't have any government funding for it. Unfortunately, the director passed away suddenly in the last year. We'd had a dealership. He was also running that. We closed that down. We've had to sort of suspend that because we couldn't couldn't fund it. And we've helped, over 500 families get decent cars during this period and really turn their lives around. I have some sort of hopeful news to report on that front. 7th District Congressman Sean Duffy has been very aware of this program, likes the model, and has been working with me on legislation to do a national demonstration for this around the country. And we've struggled a little bit with what to name the bill. I suggested to him that if he really wanted to galvanize support in the Republican colleagues, he could call it the Affordable Car Act. To his great credit, he found it hilarious, and it's moving forward. I don't know quite where it is. Washington has been a little perplexing of late, as I'm sure you're aware, but they're very serious about it. They have a lot of support, and hopefully we'll be able to get the program funded and continue to offer it here on an ample basis. Just getting near the end, one of our signature programs for many years has been the low-income weatherization program. Again, we were able to help close to 300 people in St. Croix County. We also coupled this with some Bremer Foundation funding this year to reduce the number of referrals. There are a lot of reasons, whether it's an additional roof repair or some other kind of thing that isn't covered by the program, where if it's there, sometimes the people who most need the program can't get it because their house isn't shaped up enough. And Bremer Foundation came in with a little supplemental funding to get the house shaped up so that it would be eligible for the program. And it's really been very successful, and everybody, the state's excited about it, we're excited about it, so hopefully we can do a little bit more of that. Finally, our staff, bless them, really believes in what they do, and on their own initiative have taken on a number of projects that are kind of in addition to their own work. We do a back to school program, particularly in Glenwood City. In that area, we have a holiday gift drive, kind of like a Secret Santa thing. We do backpack programs and whatnot out of our Glenwood City office and out of our nominee office, and help a lot of folks that way. So finally, you get all this for a county contribution of about $4,000. I hope you think that's a pretty good deal. Well, that money in itself actually is very valuable because there are many things that come up that our other funding sources just don't permit. So the county support which we get, by the way, from all 7 counties on about this scale is really important. But more importantly, it sends an important message to our funders in Congress and around the state and foundations that the counties we serve value what we do. They support it, they're behind us. And these days there's tremendous pressure, political pressure on discretionary spending in DC and that type of stuff, and around the state. So these and any other indications of support for what we're doing are extremely important at this time. So that, Mr. Chairman, is my report. If anybody had a question and you were to permit it, I'd be happy to.
Any questions, Supervisor Berkey?
Thank you for your comprehensive report. I'm wondering if there might be a possibility that with your work with either Duffy or other representatives in Washington that we could get some funding to help with our transit needs here. Maybe.
Well, I would certainly also very much endorse the need for public transportation, and certainly would hate to see those things in competition. You know, there's a group of people that really needs cars. You know, they got kids, they got family. The transportation pattern in this area is more like a spider web than it is a feeder system, frankly. But for many people, public transportation is an absolute essential, and I'd be more than happy to advocate more strongly on behalf of that as well. I certainly see that. I also mentioned, I failed to do that we do have the 2016 annual report with some good stories, a little bit more explanation on what we do. I left a dozen of them back here, thinking not everybody would necessarily want to read one, but if you don't find one, we have one on our website. Just Google WestCap under publications and it's there for you.
Any other questions for Pete?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete.
Next, we have the report from the Transit Subcommittee, and I think Dave Osnes will make the introductions for that.
Thank you. We're going to do a short PowerPoint that everybody's seen and give you some basic information. We've got Vice Chair of the committee, Scott Nelson is here, and Peg Agnon from Bridge is also on our committee. So take it away, folks.
All right, good morning. Like Dave said, I'm Scott Nelson, Vice Chair of Transit Planning Subcommittee. And we're going to give you a real quick spiel about what's been going on with the Transit Planning Subcommittee. Just this last April 2017, we completed a comprehensive study, which we started in June of 2016, to find the ability of what we can do as far as a Transit Planning Subcommittee. And we, the funding for it was a 80-20 grant provided by the Federal Transportation under the code 5304. You can view this on the St. Croix County website at www.stcroixcountywisconsin.gov. It'll give you a comprehensive review of what we've been doing so far. And we also hosted 2 open houses. One was in Baldwin and one was here in Hudson. So we had quite a big turnout. And this one right here, I believe, is right here in Hudson. This room. So there's a lot of good feedback. The one thing that's interesting about the Transit Planning Subcommittee, it's a public-private thing that we're trying to do. We don't think that it's necessary that the government has to pull the full boat. As you can see, a lot of the people who made comments are also in the private sector. So we find it very poignant that we have the ability as a county entity to give them some backbone to help them out to find sources. But it not only helps the county, because if you get more people employed in the county, you give these businesses the ability to grow. That brings more taxes, and you grow your community that way. If you can see some of the attendees that have been to our meetings, of transportation, DOT, department heads, Dunn County Transit, cities of New Richmond, River Falls, and Hudson. And it's very important that we have these government entities back this up, because without their support, a lot of things can't go on. And we do have some areas that need to be addressed to get more buy-in from some of the cities. But as far as the county, we're leading the charge, and we think under Dave Osnes' leadership that we're heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everyone. Scott has told me earlier in our preparation for today's preparation that I'll take care of everything else. Just kidding. Okay. But actually, I want to talk to you today about all of the work that the Transit Committee has been doing over the last several months, in fact, since the mid-2015. But you can see these are the rest of the organizations that we have sought out, or who sought us out with their needs and their interest in transit in the St. Croix County area. You can see several community organizations are listed there. We've heard from the Chamber today. We're working regionally as well. You've got the university listed, of course, the human service side of things with not only the organization that I lead, but also all the other organizations. We heard from the Pregnancy Helpline out of River Falls. Just as a sampling of all of the health and human service needs that could be met with this kind of initiative. We have the health centers, very interesting. We had the CEO from Baldwin, Allison Page. We had Alina Health from River Falls, very interested in this. And of course, we had the director from Presbyterian Homes, which has got a new senior housing unit up near the Hudson Hospital. And all of them address the need not only for their own patients, but really for their employees as well. Just getting to staff these regional health centers is becoming quite a challenge. And part of it is the transportation issue. Also, Allison brought up a very important fact that I hadn't even really thought about, is that they can do they do a lot of preliminaries in the workup that they can do out here regionally, but often many of us are referred on into the experts and the subspecialty experts in the Twin City area. And there is no way, other than if they have a family member who can step forward and perhaps leave work for the day or leave work for many days. If you have a complex illness, you're not going just once. And so whether you're receiving radiation, chemotherapy, going in for any sort of interventional medicine that may need the technology that's available in those Twin City organizations, you are out of luck if you don't have a ride. And so Allison actually said they had staff members that would arrange their schedules so that on their free time they would drive their patients in for interventional medicine and radiation. I was very moved by that story. We have a lot of business and industry represented here, and you can see we've seen the St. Croix Economic Development Corporation. Bill's been very instrumental in coming to meetings. We can see Cardinal Health, the employment agencies. We had a very, very passionate presentation by a woman by the name of Emily Croix from the Best Made Cookie Company, Hudson Baking Company. And they have a large shift of workers in River Falls that make cookies. They are delicious, but they have really struggled to find people with reasonable and dependable transportation in order to get there to fill their shifts. And so she is very interested in some sort of public-private partnership on getting transit available, for workers. And I just wrote down a list of, we've been meeting, as I said, monthly, and we've talked to many organizations, and they, of course, they're talking about their clients. They're talking about their employees. They're talking about transits for their customers, just trying to get customers into the door. You can't eat in downtown Hudson. You can't park in downtown Hudson on a Friday or Saturday night, or a Thursday night, or a Monday night, or whatever night of the week it is. Just to get a public, Bridge has a fleet of vehicles that we use just to move our folks around in our own business, and we often are called when we were called last year when the Hot Air Affair was here and seeing if we were interested in running the transit to all the hotels so people could go downtown and eat. I said, I don't think the funders in Madison were quite intending it for that purpose, but if we could, we might want to think about that. I think that those kind of relationships could perhaps be established if you can work out the infrastructure underneath that. But there are patients, there are members. We heard from Blake, those are members that belong to a chamber, for example. They're definitely interested in getting public transit into this area. Of course, UWRF, we had a meeting up there, and they have students that are coming in from not only, it is a large commuting campus, I will give you that, but they also have a large international student population. They have a lot of students that actually just live in River Falls and walk to and from the college campus. But if they're going to come up and get their MBA at Hudson here, what a lovely thing that would have been when I was back in that era of my life. That would have been extremely exciting for someone like myself. But having, just being able to get the students to and from River Falls and up to these advanced programs here would be a wonderful activity. They had really a big need. And of course, we heard from Wanda here, I hadn't even really thought about this, but for volunteers, there's a huge need in the nonprofit sector and also in the hospitals and in many, many places for volunteers. But if you can't get your volunteer there or they can't get to you, you're losing out on all that capacity. That's really untapped potential, and those are things we don't want to forget about. Next slide. Then, okay. Yeah, you can kind of talk about a few of the names and how we organized it.
Many of these names are people that have a big impact on what we can do as far as in community. We also have names on there that can help us regionally, and we also have a name on there that can help us nationally. We know that Vice Chair Osnes is actually a member of many of these committees. But when you have people like Dan Federley, Ann Schnell, Dolly Caitlin, John Gibbons, Bill Rubin, Blake has been a huge supporter. These are people that have vested interest that knows what transportation is about and what it should be for a community of this size.
We also kind of organized that was for the kind of the national and state and regional folks that we've worked with, but there's a lot of county and local folk representatives as well. We've got the Health and Human Services area. It was really important to get to all the major cities in the service area and talk about this and see where their interest lies. We have interest from all the major cities here. City of Hudson, City of New Richmond, City of River Falls. Bingo, way to go. This is where we need to kind of pull in everyone here. We also have huge business interest, as we heard from Kathy today. We've got the leisure, rec, social, the whole part of the community fabric that raises all of us up with representatives, like, for example, from the Y. As I said, we've got all the health, many of the major health players here, UWRF, and of course the press was always at these meetings. Nothing was done behind closed doors. These meetings are open meetings. I invite all of you to attend and give input. It was well publicized today that there would be public comment around this issue as well. And I think it's really interesting, and I'm really pleased so far that we've had nothing but 100% positive input today to you about the need for this. This is, Blake gave an interesting statistic. I hadn't realized this, but that, I think it was Blake, that we're the 8th largest? Yeah. metropolitan area in the state, and there were other places that were smaller than us that had already addressed this issue and were serving their clients in another way. The other way I also thought is that, you know, even inclement weather would have been a lot easier to have come on a bus today than for me to get in my car and drive. I had a car accident as a teenager. I'm not happy on icy roads. But you know, it's what, 3 months of our year now? I used to say 6 months, but global warming has kind of shortened that window.
So, some of the things that we figured out is actual quotes from letters to the editor, opinions. Bill Rubin from St. Croix Economic Development, the Hudson Star Observer, the absent of local transit system is a barrier. And he also got with the private companies. And also, and this is, I'm kind of hitting that demographic, by 2035, everybody's 1 in 5 will be over 65. Well, I'll be a little bit more than 65. But I can see as a younger guy that actually the ability to have transit would be a huge thing if you want to move from another area into this area. So what's next for the Transit and Planning Subcommittee? We want to grow and get more business buy-in. We want this to be a public-private entity. We want it to really work out. And to do that, we got to create a transit commission. And what a commission does, it gives us the ability to get more funding from federal and state agencies. And that would be also an appointed commission. And people who would have a genuine need to run something like this, they know the significance of what this transportation committee means. And we're going to keep working. We hear a lot of positive comments, which fuels what we do, but we just need to keep doing what we're doing and having support by the county and keep working the plan that the Regional Planning Commission has given to us. We're not steering off track. We're not letting political things derail us, because we know how important transit is in this area.
Here you can see we put a slide in here for all of you, just so you could see how who sits on the committee and who has really steadily and with a great deal of devotion continued to attend the meetings and to move this project forward. So we see the supervisors, Highway Commissioner Brad from ADRC, Tracy, myself, of course we've talked to Julie, we've got Independent Living with us, and Kristen from our Citizen Board here as well. I also brought along, just to show you in case you hadn't seen it, that these are, this is the feasibility study that you can find on the website, and this is the Cliff Notes version of it. This is the executive summary, if I will. So both of these can be available for you to take a look at.
Questions?
Supervisor Berkey.
So is protocol for a transit commission to be appointed by the county board and organized through the county board? I would ask that this be forwarded to the appropriate committee, Chair, so that we can have some more serious discussion and move forward on establishing a transit committee.
Chair Larson? Vice Chair Osnes, could you kind of give us a timeline of what the steps are, Dave, that we've actually talked about before as far as for this process of doing a commission, so people would know the timeline?
Yeah, well, it'd have to get transferred over to the Transportation Committee to bring things back to the Full County Board with some type of resolution. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Supervisor Aktoroff.
I don't really have a question, but a comment that 4 years ago, approximately 4 years ago, when I first decided to run for County Board Supervisor, I went to all the areas that I represented, and everyone made the comment, can you make sure that we're not forgotten about? And everything I've heard today kind of makes me think that you've forgotten about us, because it's been River Falls mentioned, and Hudson mentioned, and New Richmond mentioned. And I realize that we're a small area, but we're just as important as everybody else. Just because our population is less doesn't mean that we should be forgotten about. And I just want to make sure that that's included in this, because in Glenwood City, there's been one new house built, I think, in the past 8 years. Their levy is really tough because, you know, we're kind of located out of the way and it's hard to get to. We're a ways away from the freeway, but I just want to make sure that we're not forgotten about.
Supervisor Peavy? Supervisor Osmus?
Supervisor Achterhoff, I appreciate your concerns. And that exact comment I have made to our committee a number of times. It is our goal that we will not leave anyone out. We're going to include all 87,000 residents. Part of the study showed 4 basic routes, potential routes. One was between River Falls and Hudson. One was between Hudson going up 35 north to Somerset, over to New Richmond, and one coming down from New Richmond to River Falls. And then when I saw that, I said, what about everybody else west of Highway 65? So one of the things that we had looked at possibly would be to divide the county into 6 sections, all equal, and perhaps work from there on either a shared taxi, or if we can get individuals that we could partner with, we could move folks from one section of the county to the other. One of the things that I've heard, especially is folks from Glenwood City, and a number of those have said, I no longer drive, but I go to the doctor in Hudson. Can you help me get there? So I will guarantee you, you are not forgotten. We're still working on it. We gave a presentation a number of months ago to the Town Association. We're going to be back out talking with those folks as well. It is our hope to get out to each one of the municipalities as well. So we're working on it. It's a work in progress, but you're not forgotten.
Any other questions? Supervisor Hanson?
I've heard requests for Uber or other such services a couple of times from the public comment. I'm wondering, what does it take to get that? Is that something that we can have any control over?
To tell you the honest truth, I don't have no clue on that, and that's more of a private than is a public transportation. Dave, you might be in tune with that a little bit more. Me personally, I don't know anything about it as far as what they can do as far as in a county area.
I didn't hear what the question was, Dan.
About Uber and Lyft.
What was your question or your statement?
A couple of people during public comment were asking that we encourage Uber to move into St. Croix County or this area in some way. And I'm wondering if that's something we can influence or encourage, I don't know, work through economic development. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Blake, do you want to come up? Because we've had this conversation.
Actually, Lyft is now available in our area. Uber has not, son. I've reached out to Uber and contacted them. Oftentimes, they base that decision on how many people have signed up to be a driver or made their intention known that they would like to work for the company. But we do have Lyft available. It takes a little while. A lot of the drivers are sitting on the Minnesota side of the line and will come over here when requested, but it is available. Uber is kind of a mess in many ways as a company right now, but I have contacted them directly about moving over to this area, but it's not some sort of county or state policy that's prohibiting them from coming over here. It's just whether they think it fits their business model, but we at least now have Lyft available.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thanks, Scott and Peg and Dave. We will move forward. Appointments, Indy Head Federated Library Systems, and we'll move over to.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to recommend the appointment of Dave Harden of Hudson, Wisconsin, to replace Steve Anderson on the IFLIS board. Steve is retiring from the board after serving on the IFLIS board for 15 years, actually 5 3-year terms. So in recommending this appointment of Dave Harden, I'd also like to publicly thank Steve Anderson for his many years of public service on the IFLIS board. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor, motion. Need a second. Supervisor Brinkman. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on the appointment? Seeing none, we'll vote. And that's all yeses. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. We have annual reports at this time. Child support, Chad Walski.
Good morning, everyone. Just like everyone else, I think I have a little bit of cold from the change in weather, but I'll try to make this a little bit short and sweet. Our mission statement's to help families become self-sufficient by establishing and enforcing child support orders. In addition to that, we also review and modify orders, establish and enforce medical support orders to ensure that the children are covered under health insurance. And then we also establish paternity for children that are born to unwed parents. Over this last year, our total collections are approaching 15 million. We met or exceeded all of our performance expectations. Not only is that good for the families because they're receiving more of the support that's owed to them, and we're establishing more orders and establishing more paternities, it also ensures that we get our full contract funding from the federal and the state government as well. This last year we went to electronic court filing, so everything that we filed with the clerk of court's office now is filed electronically. There's no more paper shuffling. The signatures are electronic. The pass-through to the judges have improved. They sign electronically as well. And if the participants sign up for electronic filing as well, we can serve them documents electronically, so we don't have to mail those out. In addition to that, we did we're converting all of our cases over to electronic case files as well. We're about 60% through that process right now. Every new document that we get is stored electronically. We had about 1 million documents when we started the process, so we're about, we have about 600,000 of them scanned in from past documents we had. Still have, close to 500,000 to go, but that process is slowly getting done. And obviously some cases are closing off and we're destroying those files, and every new case is electronic that comes into our office. We added email availability to our clients this year. That's been a huge improvement, not only for the younger generation, but just sort of a shift in the clients in general. They'd rather send an email to find out about payments, what's happening about their case, giving us updates on employment, instead of talking to a live person. So I think that's really improved our customer service. We continue to run the Minnesota-Wisconsin border project, collaborating with their state. We have a lot of cases that we share in common, and a lot of our clients go to Minnesota to work. A lot of clients from Minnesota come to Wisconsin to work as well. We've also started working with Workforce Resource, which runs the local job center to help our underemployed and unemployed participants obtain jobs or skills needed to obtain jobs. As far as our budget is concerned, everything's on track for this year. Everything was on track for last year. Our expenses and our revenue are as anticipated. I continue to serve on the Wisconsin Child Support Enforcement Association board, helps drive policy at the state, come up with improvements in our agencies to improve performance. Obviously, the concerns, restraints, our caseload continues to grow. We have about 4,100 cases at this point in time. But we continue to improve our technology, improve staff training and development, and with the support of the administration and the county board, we continue to improve our program and better serve the clients that we have. For this next year, our goals continue to be to exceed all the child support contract performance measures. That'll ensure the contract funding is paid in full, but also it'll improve the clients we serve. We're going to pilot and implement new document generation software that the state's developed. If you guys could see it, the current software that they have is sort of back from like Oregon Trail. It's green and black screen. There's no word wrap. It's about a 3 or 4 part process just to do a spell check. So this software that they've developed for the child support program, it's going to help us improve our speed and efficiency in creating the documents that we need to file court actions, do administrative enforcement, and notify clients of their obligations. Also, we're going to enhance our employment referral process. Like I said, we started working with Workforce Resource. We're going to improve and expand that program this year, hoping to get some additional funds from the state to assist with that, and connecting unemployed and underemployed participants with the resources to get them to find employment and improve their employable skills. That's the short and sweet of it. I don't know if anyone here has any questions or comments or anything that I can address.
Anybody have any questions for Chad? Supervisor Schoberg.
So how big is the staff that you have to bring in this $15 million?
So we're at 8.225 full-time employment. So we have 2 part-time, 6 full-time specialists, and then myself. Yeah, and we just, this last year, we just added the customer service representative for our front desk duties, and she's been great. It's freed up a lot of time for the specialist to do more casework. I think I figured it out this last year, but it was in the thousands of hours that will sort of, with her addition, that would free up time for the specialist.
Well, that's pretty productive. Thanks.
Supervisor Hanson.
Chad, I got to tell you, last year when you gave your report, your goals were very close to what you have here as your accomplishments, and I really appreciate that, and I want to compliment you. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about your goal for next year of helping people find jobs who are unemployed and underemployed. Are you going to have to add workforce? Are you going to have to add staff to do that? And what does that look like? What resources do you need to do that?
So I don't anticipate that we'll need to add staff internally. So what we're going to use is our partnership with Workforce Resources, because their agency is geared for that. That's who their staff. That's what their staff does. Is they train people, and they get funding for that and connecting them with employers. They've started coming to some of our court hearings, so we can connect the people that are unemployed or underemployed with Workforce Resources. So they have a bunch of different programs that they administer, and sometimes people are unaware of the opportunities that are there for them to get help. There's a lot of clients that come in that have disabilities, but they didn't know that medical assistance was available, so they could go and treat them. Also food shares. So they might be unemployed right now. With the food share program, they can get job training along with that, and then it can help with the transportation costs. So it's sort of a lot of discussion on that piece of it as well, but that's one of the barriers that people that are unemployed that owe child support have is transportation. But their Workforce Resources, if they qualify, they can get help with gas vouchers, car repair, those types of things. So it's more of connecting our people with the resources that are there. So I don't anticipate us needing any additional staff to make that happen. It's just more of collaborating with the resources that are out there.
Any other, Supervisor Brinkman?
Chad, the $15 million your people will collect this year, that is approximately what percentage of the court-ordered monies?
So there's a couple different ones, but the current support obligation is sort of the most important. That's what's while the children are minors, what's due in the month. And we hit, I believe, 82% at the end of last year. So 82% of what's owed each month is paid in that month. In addition to that, we collect some of that money that's not paid in other months, but that's counted separately.
And that 82%, if I understood correctly in talking with you before, we're one of 2 counties in the state that hits 80%?
There's a few more counties. So there's only a quarter of the counties that meet all of the federally contracted performance rates, and we're one of, I think it's 12 counties that meet all 4 of the performance measures. We've started off this federal fiscal year, which started in October, the highest that we've ever had in our agency. So the first month we were near 84% for our current support collections. So we'll keep on, trying to improve that. That's the goal, is eventually if we could get to 100%, that would be great, because that would mean every penny that's owed in the month is paid during the month and is going out to the clients. But obviously that's a difficult thing to do. People change jobs, become unemployed, those types of things.
Supervisor Octorara?
Just, you say the percentage that's owed, is that of people that pay it, is that going up or down, or is it staying pretty even in the past few years?
I think it's been about the same. I think we're adding cases on. So generally we're collecting more total collections than in previous years. But there's so many things that come into the child support obligation. We've seen more shared placement cases over the last, I'd say, 10 years since I've started, which reduces the child support obligation. So if one parent has more placement time, then the child support obligation is reduced for the total order. But as a percentage of what's owed, we continue to increase the amount that's being collected.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of Chad? Not seen any? Thank you, Chad.
All right, thank you.
Now we'll move on to our medical examiner, Patty Schochner.
Hello and good morning, everybody. I just wanted to make sure you guys all reviewed your annual report ahead of time. We've got a lot of exciting things going on at the medical examiner's office. We moved to our new space, which was a welcome addition to what's going on and how we treat our people here in St. Croix County. It's been told that a society is judged on how they treat their dead, and we treat ours very well. And it's very much appreciated by the people and the families that we serve. Since the new facility has been open, we have had quite a few viewings out at our place, and we have found out that we have a global perspective. 3 times in the last 45 days, people have flown in to view their families, which family member who has died. One was from Amsterdam, one was from Italy, and one was from India. So that was interesting. Our funeral homes are very appreciative of the services that we offer now as our law enforcement and the hospital. So it's working out to be a really good fit, and something that is kind of trending throughout the state and the nation when it comes to the changing funeral services. So it gives the family an opportunity to be with people that they love in a stress-free environment. Doing that, having said that, one of the things that we realized when we worked with the chaplains was that we had a really good space, but we didn't have a soothing space. So I connected with a friend of mine, Becky Olson, and she's an art teacher in Somerset, and asked her if she had any ideas on how to soften up our space, hence why we have so many students here. She teaches an AP art class. The students came to the site. We explained what happens there and tried to invoke empathy and how they could create something that was meaningful for family members while they were reflecting and really get nothing in return. So we just want to quickly show you the artwork. Becky, if you would come up, show you the artwork that they created that people from all over, not only in St. Croix County, will get to appreciate.
Thank you very much for having us here today and showcasing some of the art that is going to go into the space that Patty has talked about. When we began this journey of creating this artwork, like Patty said, we went to go see the space first of all, so the students had a grasp of where their art was going. To begin the whole process, I asked them, what does hope look like? If you could paint hope, what would it look like for somebody else to view who is beginning this journey of grief, that we can offer them a gift, an insight, something to focus on, something that they can take with them to help them process at that point that they're at. So the frames are all repurposed. We totally repainted and redid the frames that the artwork is going into. And so some of the students are brave enough to come and explain their artwork, and others will just kind of give you a flash of what their artwork looks like. So if I could have one brave soul that wants to be our first talker, Jacob. And I've just asked them to talk a little bit about the inspiration of how they came up with this idea.
So the inspiration for my idea was to show a sort of transition from one way of life to another one, a different one. And down here is a more simple and almost cityscape-like portion of the piece. Then above that is a sort of seasonal transition of life. Then that blooms into heaven, a very, in my eyes, a very soft and comfortable place, and almost kind of mysterious.
This is my friend's art who is sick today, and it's a beacon of light in midst of stormy weather. He used a lot of color to show the hope that people can have even when they're going through a tough time. This is mine. It's just sort of an abstract color to show sort of the color that you can have in life, and it's in a circular, life keeps going even when you're hurting. My art is based off of a little story I heard, and it's a son asking his mom, "Mom, why do the most beautiful people die? Why do good people die?" And the mom tells him, "Well, when you're walking through a field of flowers, you always pick the most beautiful flowers." So I painted a girl holding a flower in a field with light shining down on her to show there's hope, and good people do die, but they're in a better place.
This is artwork that was finished by Sarah Tronson, who isn't able to be with us today. It was her first experiment with oil paints. So this is what she envisions life after death to be.
This is a painting of a sunflower growing, and it's a very simplified version of what growth looks like. When you transition into a life without someone that you love, you're desperate and you're sad, but there's growth within it, and you grow as a person.
And our next group will just be showing you their art. And this is Jody Camp, and this is her artwork. And I really didn't give them any boundaries on what they can do. So there's a lot of different variety of art. Here's Hannah Thermos's ink work. You want to talk about it?
Okay. My ink work is kind of different than everyone else's. Everyone else kind of went for like the color purpose, and I really like that idea. But mine was kind of like, you're in like the dark space right now, and I just kind of wanted to like establish the point of like the light at the end of the tunnel, which is why the tunnel does go from like a dark to a light, which I really enjoy.
And this is artwork by Alex Jentz. And she did a watercolor. And here is Vienna's. We know that watching an aquarium of goldfish can actually lower your blood pressure. So this was her goal in this, to also use blue, which is calming, and the goldfish. That was Vienna Brown. I don't know if I said her name or not. Megan Schultz focused on beauty, the softness of the rose, for the delicateness of the situation. This is some artwork that was done by Chandra Wiswell that also isn't able to be here with us today. Her first experiment with oil paints as well.
So this was like obviously a butterfly just because like they have very short lives, but they're full of light.
This is Kaylee Erickson, and this we totally experimented with. We took regular baking flour and mixed it with our paint to make it rough in texture. So she painted it with a palette knife. She's a detailed artist, so it was a stretch. She loved it. So now we get to continue on and hang these in our space. So thank you for letting us highlight our artwork from Somerset High School students.
I would like to say, since we started this project, we have had other school districts reach out and would like to also be a part. It's, community-based service learning. There's a lot of different things that went into this. So the medical examiner's office is really moving forward. We're collaborating with a lot of our youth and nonprofits and getting out there and getting out in the community to let people know that yes, we do deal with the public in the worst time in their life, but we can bring joy to people's lives also. Any questions?
I see any questions from anybody? Patty? Seeing none? Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
I think we'll do our financial report, and then we'll probably take a little break, if that's okay. I'll turn it over to Administrator Thompson for his.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tough to follow that, Patty, with a boring financial report, but the reports are in your packet. They represent financial activity through the end of October, both revenues and expenditures. Things are looking okay in terms of where we're at with the budget, with 2 months left of the year, both for expenditures and revenues. Also, we have the CIP status report. A little while later in the agenda, we'll have a resolution that will request carry forward of funding in the CIP for several projects that will carry over into next year. But that'll take place a little bit later on the agenda. I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions?
If not, thank you.
We will take a 10-minute break, if everybody's okay with that. Okay, thank you. And the first thing we have on our agenda for business items is the Health Center Project Final Report.
Yeah, so I'm going to call a few people up to the podium. This is our final report on the Health Center building project. It's been quite a project, but and a good one. A lot of team effort, a lot of work has gone into this. Too many names to mention, but I would like to thank the ad hoc committee chaired by Supervisor Peterson, Dave Peterson. Thank you for your work on that. Several members of the ad hoc are here. Raise your hand if you served on the ad hoc. Scotty Ard was actually a citizen member when she started with the ad hoc, and now she's on our county board. So we also had Deb Rasmussen and Suzanne Van Mealy as citizen members on the ad hoc. But they met almost monthly, kept the project on target, on schedule, on budget. And I'd like to thank them for their guidance and leadership. I'd also like to call on We have representatives from Horty Elving Wold, which was the lead architect on the project, Rick Moore, from Market and Johnson, who was the contract, the manager, the construction manager on the project, Randy Lefebvre from Market and Johnson. I'd like to call out those guys. Also, Jim Ellsbury and Bob Middett also were lead Bob in terms of the financial side of the project, and Jim Ellsbury and his crew in terms of facilities direction. Of course, Fred Johnson, Sandy Hackenmuller, the administrator of the nursing home, all integral parts of the project. But I'd like to call on Jim and Bob, Rick Moore and Randy to come up and just say a few words on their part in the project and kind of wrap things up for us.
I'll go first. Good morning. We are getting ready to close out the project. We have some existing walkthrough items that were noted. Randy and I and Mark from my department went through the building. Randy has two gentlemen there today working to get rid of the punch list items that are remaining. We also were able to secure a 2-year contract extension with Humeritech, who did the controls on the building. And because of a myriad of reasons, they went ahead and, as an offering for us, they gave us a 2-year extension of warranty on the controls, which is great. And they've also awarded us 8 hours every quarter to come through and correct any issues that are going on with the controls. So that is a huge, huge win for us. We have some existing items left for the CBRF, which will, some of it will take place in the spring. The rest of it, as Randy's going through and gets the guys done with the nursing home portion, we'll be following up and finishing up the CBRF. We have some items left from Ahern, the HVAC contractor. They're at about 2 items left in the nursing home, and then they have a number in the CBRF. And then also the other one was Swanson's, the flooring company. They have some items left in the nursing home, some tiles cracked, whatnot, that we'll be addressing with them. And I know Randy's been working with all the contractors to get this completed. Otherwise, we did it. For those of you on the committee, yeah, thumbs up, we got it done. So Randy, I'll let you go ahead and talk to those items, and then Rick.
Certainly. Good morning. So as Jim alluded to, we conducted our 11-month walkthrough of phase 1, the nursing home. And that's just an item that we do give the owners a year of usage of the building, walk through it, see if there's anything that we can fix, repair, or just changes that need to happen. And we assembled a list, as Jim said, about 32 items, which all in all, after a year's use, isn't bad. There are a lot of cosmetic things that we just go in there and fix, but felt pretty good about that walkthrough. On the phase 2 CBRF, we have, as of this morning, I think we have 6 items that are still outstanding, which I've got 2 of my gentlemen there today fixing those. Got a couple of subs walking in there, and also, and there, some of them are pretty minor. So, but they are, again, they're items on the list that we need to take care of. So, very happy with that. From the financial side, things are really looking good after phase 1, phase 2, with all the fantastic surprises in an existing building. Took some hits here and there, but at the end of the day, we gave money back, and that's really, we felt pretty good about that. It was a tough road the last 6 months, but both facilities look fantastic. Design looks great, and hopefully everybody's happy with facility and the users, the residents. But it was great to work with everybody. I'd love to do it again. We can start tomorrow if you want something new. But Mark and Johnson, on behalf of them, we're really happy with it, and appreciate the teamwork and performance of the whole work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, after that, there's not a lot to say. We really appreciate the board and the ad hoc committee, and they were great to work with and really made this project go well. We when we started this, we had some goals, and I think the change for the residents is evident, and I think everyone is appreciative of that, and hopefully that will continue down the road. The only comment I would, excuse me, as we get out of this building project, and when I was at one of the conferences and talking to some of the leaders in the industry, and I asked them, I said, well, now that we've all kind of, we all, you know, are really kind of get the idea of the household and the private rooms and what that does for people, I asked, well, where do you go next? What does that mean? And the comment was that really, it's really the outreach programs after this. And it's not so much a building program, but like the PACE program in Nebraska, it's a clearinghouse for elderly to call in and get a service. They may have 50 different vendors or service providers that can get you what you need. And I would just suggest that the state may have something like that in the works and try to tap into that, and that would be, I would think, maybe something that the county could be a part of and as a service to the community. And after hearing all of the discussions on transportation, getting people to and from these kinds of things. But that would be something, and then that would complete kind of that virtual campus out into your county. So I would say that maybe is your next thoughts for what you may want to consider doing. And then I think that would complete your further complete your mission in terms of your care of some of your senior residents. So with that, we've really enjoyed the process with everyone here, and look forward to doing something again with you. And if anything comes up, and we're working on a couple little things right now as the building closes out and the final submittals and a couple little tweaks. If there's anything that doesn't work or that needs some reconsideration, or if there's any kind of an issue, you know, we're always there. Just give us a call. Just because the project is ending doesn't necessarily mean that we're gone and done. So, I mean, when we do these buildings, they're kind of for life. So, just give us a call. Don't be afraid. Thank you.
Yes, and we'll let the numbers guy kind of bring up the rear here. Probably is fitting, because as the people that spoke before me, as they wind up their job, then we'll wind up ours by giving them their last payments. But just wanted to draw attention to a couple of the numbers on the screen here. We had a total budget of $21,787,000. At this point, we've spent $21,502,000. We have about $256,000 that we estimate net that still remains encumbered. But at this point, we are $28,349 under budget. So I think it's been a successful project. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions from anybody? Not seen anybody? Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone. Good report. We can move forward. And thank you again to that ad hoc committee. They did a good job on that out there, so appreciate that. We'll move forward. Number 2 here, amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance, Town of Stanton. Who's going to take that on? We need some
I move that
motion.
we adopt it, this zoning amendment, the way it's written.
So Supervisor Hansen's motion. Do I have a second? Supervisor Ard, second. Discussion. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
This is, I'm trying to bring it up on my computer so I can tell you what I have to say. This is just an adjustment. They have a property that they wanted to add, separate from ag to ag res. so that they can add one more residence onto the property. It's a very simple thing.
Is there any questions? No questions? What? Yeah, so I don't see any questions, so there's no more discussion. We'll vote on this amendment, so. That's all yeses. Thank you. Next item is the resolution to adopt amendments to the St. Croix County Comprehensive Plan and future land use map. I have a motion. Supervisor Berkey, second. Supervisor Hanson. Discussion. Supervisor Hanson.
This is a little bit more complicated. We're actually amending our comprehensive land use plan to accommodate about a year's work that was done by the Township of St. Joseph, and it's to make the changes that were necessary because of the new bridge opening. They gave us a wonderful presentation at the last Community Development Committee meeting, and I encourage you all to vote for it. And if we have any questions, Ellen would be happy to come up and give us a staff report.
Okay. Is there any discussion or questions? Not seeing any. Second isn't up there. So there's a motion, second on the floor. No further discussion. We'll vote. And that's all yeses. Thank you. Number 4 is a resolution authorizing the carryover of funds. And who wants to make a motion? Supervisor Schoberg, second. Supervisor Nelson. Discussion.
This is an annual resolution that we bring to the board in December, and what it will do is authorize the carryover into 2018 certain projects and the funding that is associated with those projects.
Okay. Any discussion? Not seeing any. We have a motion and a second. We'll vote. And that's all yeses. Thank you. Next one we have is the resolution adopting updated wage grid for 2018. Have a motion? Supervisor Schoberg, second. Supervisor, that's a Tatum. Any discussion on that? So
we have our HR director, Tara Davies-Fox, here, and she can explain what this resolution will do. Hi, Tara.
Good morning. So we added a couple of slides, put some slides together to further explain the resolution and the reason for the proposed wage grid change. So I'll go over, the first part is why the proposed change. The main reason is we want to help keep the McGrath grid valid and relevant in line with the market in the absence of being able to have a COLA in 2018. And then additionally, it will help us to be able to assist with our recruitment efforts to stay competitive with our wages in the changing labor market. I think we heard earlier from some public comments that there are more jobs than there are employees. And if we look at unemployment rates, in 2010, Wisconsin had an unemployment rate of 9.1, and today, as of October of 2017, we're down to 3.4. In the state of Minnesota, their unemployment rate's 3.3. And then it's even lower than that if you look at those comparable counties for Wisconsin and Minnesota, they're under 3%. So that shows that we're challenged right now to be competing with a lot of other organizations who are finding those qualified quality employees. So it'll help us to be able to do that as well, so we can stay competitive with our wages. And then additionally, it will help to provide wage advancement opportunities for some of our employees that maybe due to tenure or other variables are now at the max of their grade with STEP. They're at the highest step they can get to. And so if we don't do some change either with COLA or the wage grid, they're not going to be able to continue to get increases. So this will also help with that as well. So some more explanation about what we're actually proposing we do. We will take off the current step 1 of the McGrath wage grid, and then we will add a step at the end. So those employees that are currently at step 1 and still in their probationary period, they will stay at step 1. I'm sorry, their current step 1 wage until they complete their probationary period. And then all employees eligible to receive a step increase in January of 2018, they will advance to the next step's wage. However, although their wage will increase with the change to the wage grid, they'll actually be on the same step. So that's where I think it gets confusing sometimes. So they'll still be on the same step at a higher wage. And then just to further explain, an eligible employee is an employee who is not in their probationary period and who has received a satisfactory performance review in 2017. So an example is, say employee A is currently at step 2. Employee A is eligible for the annual step increase in January of 2018. Employee A will advance to what is the current 2017 step 3 wage. However, due to the wage grid modification, that employee would still be reflected at step 2 on the new 2018 wage grid. And I have a couple of visuals that will help further explain that. So this is a page of the current wage grid. This is what we would be doing, adding a new step at the end. And then we would delete the current step 1, so still maintaining a 19-step wage grid. And then obviously we'd renumber the steps so that we still have that 19 steps. Any questions?
Supervisor Octorov.
I understand what you're doing, but does this mean that for the employees, it's going to take them longer to reach the top? Because every 3 years or so, they're going to be at the same. So instead of taking, let's say, 18 years to reach the top, it's going to take them 25 or 26 if every year we add. Is that correct?
So their wage is still going to be at
Right,
the higher wage.
I understand that, but their step to get up to their highest level, it's going to take them longer.
It would take them longer if we continue to modify the wage grid, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Supervisor Rosses.
Thank you. I sat in on the administration committee when they were discussing this. And pardon me, but I've got to be an old fart or something on this one because I still don't understand part of this. I understand we're going to add a step at the end. The folks that currently are on step 1 are going to stay there until the end of their probationary period. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But then we're going to add we're going to add a step 1 besides that?
So those that are currently on probation will stay at the wage rate of step 1. So
Right.
technically, they're almost going to be off the grid until they hit their probationary period. Then they will go to step 1 again, yes. At a higher rate, but it will still be reflected as step 1. Not helping?
So they're not going to gain anything once they're done with
Yes.
probationary?
Yep, they will, because step 1 is now at a higher rate than it is today. So the step 1 in 2018 will actually be what step 2 is today.
Okay.
Supervisor Nelson.
I think the way you need to look at it, Supervisor Osnes, is the entry wage going in will be higher for them to start, to keep competitive to what's out there in the public and the private sector. So if you start at $20 an hour and then they want to move it up to $20.65, they'll go entry at $20.65 unless they're still on probation. And once they get off the probation, they're at $20.65. I've seen this before at other places, the public sector. So that's just a way to keep the grid actually moving with a COLA allowance or what the private and public sectors are doing out there.
So then, technically, then, if I may, so we're actually adding 2 steps, not one, correct? We're adding the step at the end, but we're also adding another step at the beginning, so there's 2 steps in there.
No, yep, step 2 will, maybe maybe this will help. Step 2 will become step 1, and then we're adding one at the end. So it's still gonna be a 19-step wage grid. It's just that the step 1 is gone. So we've just increased each step by, I think it's 1.5%, but it's still only 19 steps. I don't know if you can try, Ken, you think you can better, I wanna make sure, I feel like maybe I'm not explaining it well.
You did fine.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
Any other questions from anybody? Supervisor Coulter?
Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up. Maybe you just did. So every step is getting increased by 1.5%.
Correct.
Okay.
Look, it's across the board, or is there a slight difference and no different?
Any other, Supervisor Long?
Okay, so no, that's not correct then. It is based on different percentages based on the different steps. And I am gonna have to defer, Ken, if you could say what the steps are, because I don't recall each breakdown.
So we are adding just the step on the end, which is a 1.5% increase. So the grid increased, if you look at the start and end, it increased by 1.5%. So the grid though itself is made into 3 different sections. The first 7 steps, I think it is, are at 2.5%. And then the next 3 steps are at 2%, and the remaining steps are at 1.5%. So we added 1 on the end.
Supervisor Long?
Looks like the short-term fiscal impact is pretty negligible. Do you have any idea of the longer-term impact on wages, just so we have a better sense going forward?
The longer-term impact from just this, or what our future plans would be? Just this one change, and I'm sorry, Ken, I'm going to defer to you, because you had that, I thought you had that number.
Yeah, well, he's talking the short-term impact. It affects 2 employees. It's a couple $1,000s for the county. So wages are $30 million, roughly $32 million are the total county wages. So 1.5% increase to that is your new maximum range. If every employee hit the maximum on the current grid, that's 1.5% higher. That's the maximum increase.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. We have a motion and a second on the floor. It's time to vote. And that's all yeses. Thank you. Then we have a resolution adopting procurement to pay policy. Who wants to make a motion? Supervisor Schoberg, second. Supervisor Berkey. Discussion.
This is a reformatting of the existing purchasing policy for the county, and it inserts new terminology which will jive with the new ERP system for the financials, which we are anticipating to go live January 2nd of next year. And so the purchasing policy needed to be reformatted so that the terminology complies with the ERP terminology. But the thrust of the purchasing policy remains much the same. There are very few changes to it.
Any questions, discussion? Seeing none. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote. That's all yeses, thank you. And our last item is the Town of Forest rezoning request. So I need a motion. Supervisor Hanson, second. Supervisor Ard. Discussion. You don't want to handle that one?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair and County Supervisors, the request that's being made is from the Gary and Fran Heinbach Trust. This piece of property, which is a part of the trust, is located on near 128th and County Road P and Forest. It is a piece of property that, due to easements and due to wind turbine easements which were already in place, this property was put at the very strange 8.89 acres, which is generally not what the town of Forest would allow for. But this has been before the Plan Commission in the town of Forest and before the board, and there have been no negative discussions regarding this proposal, and now it appears before us, and I would urge everyone to vote for approval.
Are there any questions? That's Supervisor Babbitt.
Just very quickly, Supervisor Art, I wondered when I saw this whether it was related to the wind turbine situation. Sounds like it is, at least peripherally. Is that correct?
The only way that there is a turbine memorandum within this is because of adjoining properties which have easements already in place. And so those easements, if you looked at the CSM that was provided with this, you can see that there is an easement road which runs directly through the middle of this property. That is because there was an easement. They needed an easement for the property which will host a turbine directly behind it.
Supervisor Hanson.
I would point out that where wind turbines go have no bearing upon our approval or disapproval, that Forest is simply requesting that we approve their zoning request, and generally, if they've approved it, we second that. We go along with that, and there's nothing wrong with the process. This is all completely consistent with the way we do things. So it's very much kosher, and I agree with Ellen. We should go ahead and pass this thing.
Any other questions? Discussion? None? We have a motion, a second. Scotty? There's a motion, a second on the floor. So at this time, we'll vote. And that's all yeses. Thank you. And that concludes our business items. We need a request for future agenda items. Anything out there? If you need, you can just go to hold of Cindy, Pat, or myself if you need something put on the agenda. Not seeing anything, we'll move forward. County Clerk's report.
I have no correspondence. I do have a couple reminders. I have candidacy paperwork in my office. If you're interested in those packets, they're also available online. I'd like to remind you, if you're not running for county board supervisor, the non-candidacy, notification of non-candidacy is due by December 22nd at 5 p.m. And if that's not filed by a candidate, that extends the filing period to 72 hours, a period of 72 hours for someone else to file. So of course, the deadline is January 2nd for filing the paperwork. And I just want to remind you that the government center the offices are closed December 25th and 26th this year, so for the Christmas holiday. Also a reminder, we do have a couple special elections coming up. December 19th is the primary, and January 16th is the general for these state Senate District 10 position. And just to let you know, these special elections, this is the county's responsibility. The county's paying for all of this, including municipal costs, which we normally don't. So just so you know that, and that the budget will probably be slightly over in 17 and 18. We'll see how that works out. And then also a couple people, I'm looking for some refreshment money from you if you know who you are. If you don't, I'll let you know. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a quick reminder that we have limited editions of the bound copy of the 2018 budget. It's all online, but if you prefer a bound version, printed version, see Ken Witt in the back of the room or Bob Middett.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any announcements? Anybody have any announcements? Supervisor Babbitt.
Roger, just again, remind us that the January meeting has now officially been changed.
To January 4th.
Right, from Tuesday the 2nd to Thursday the 4th.
Right.
Same time.
Same time.
Okay.
9 o'clock. Any other announcements? I'd like to just say to everybody, have a very happy holiday season. Enjoy yourself, and everybody be well and enjoy. So, and with that, we're adjourned.